extra. Debbie, let's bring you back on the subjects of children. I noticed in Ben's segment it was mentioning Sesame there, and they were supposedly saying they got the best interests of children at heart. I don't think that's the case. Debbie, tell us what you've got, and I've taken a bit of your time. You take as much time as you need in this segment.
Thank you. Children. I don't really know where to start on this segment, except I'm horrified. And as all of our regular viewers and listeners will know, no one has been as quick out of the gate when it comes to child abuse, secret family courts, child protection, child trafficking than UK Column. And again, I would re-echo what Brian said in his segment. Please go to the search bar, because it's the amount of material on the website is huge. Now, we focused a lot during lock-up on what was going on in elderly care homes, but actually what was going on in children's care homes and in children's social care. So I just want to start off with Ofsted's report of the main findings of children's social care in England, just to put a bit of perspective. So out of 12 million children in England, 400,000 are within the social care system. As of the 31st of March 23, 82,000 children were in care. As of 31st of March 23, there were 3,812 active or suspended social care providers in England. Just let that sink in. Now, the UK Parliament has been very busy investigating children's social care, and they've been asking, are the reforms going far enough and fast enough? Now, only last week, there was a Children's Education Committee in the House of Commons. This is one of the select committees that I really would advise everybody, please go to Parliament Live and watch these, because they really are very, very eye-opening. And in this one in particular, I'm going to show you a couple of clips. The first one is Anna Firth. Anna Firth is the MP for Southend, I believe. And I want to ask you, what do you do with vinegar? Do you pour it on your chips? Do you clean your windows with it? Have a listen to the question from Anna Firth to the head of Ofsted, Yvette Stanley.
Now bring in Anna.
Thank you, Chair. I want to now talk specifically about the Hesley Children's Homes. And we all know that in 2022, the Child Safeguarding Practice Review Panel uncovered a terrible culture of abuse and harm inside Hesley residential homes for children with complex needs. And, you know, we've read about the punching, the kicking, being fed with chilies, having vinegar poured into cuts, and over 100 reports of incidents between 2018 and 2021 in a home that was rated good by Ofsted.
Pouring vinegar into children's wounds, feeding them chilies, beating and abusing them in a home that was reported as good by Ofsted. So when Ofsted were questioned about this, and Yvette Stanley came back with her answer, of course she said they've put in lots of extra staff, they've tightened up their all of their systems, they were quite horrified. But she also added this.
In COVID, no one got in. We didn't get in. So that was part of the loss of that line of sight. We must never lose a line of sight of these children if there is another pandemic. But also, what the panel alighted on was that the need for absolute clarity. When a local authority is placing a child 200 miles away and the home local authority doesn't place any children there, how do we know what's going on when 35 local authorities... And during our inspections, we would have rung up those local authorities and said, have you got any concerns? They didn't have any concerns.
They didn't have any concerns, they just got lost. Nobody bothered. And the BBC article here will give you a bit more information on what actually happened in Doncaster. And this was a culture of abuse, Fullerton House, Wilsick Hall and Wheatley House. The next slide, Stephanie, when she very kindly forwards it, will show you that Yvette Stanley in 2021 was actually in charge. She was the National Director for Regulation and Social Care. And she brought out a report, her findings. And part of the findings were that parents could only see their children for about 1.5 hours during the first lockdown. Or lock-up, as I call it. So they were literally isolated. She went on to say that 80% of children's homes are owned by the private sector. Now, if we look at Ofsted's report of the main findings of the largest national providers of children's care facilities, we can see that CareTech hold the lion's share there with 10%. There's a few other companies there, Outcomes First, Compass Community. But let's look at how much was spent. And in 2020 to 2021, 11 billion was spent in children's services. I just want to take you very quickly to CareTech. Who are CareTech, since they're the largest? Well, they say they're a principled service provider delivering high quality individualised care and support within a person-centred approach. Who runs it? The gentleman that runs it is Farouk Sheikh, OBE. He started off with this single care home, but then they sold it. He did other things, and then he bought it back for £1 billion. Now, Ben might be interested to know that his CV includes Ernst Young, Coutts. He's patron and a fellow of the Prince's Trust, and he also runs a charitable foundation called Kosoref. If we go and look at Kosoref, we can actually see that one of the priority countries is the United Kingdom, and we can see the involvement there again with the Prince's Trust. So very quickly, back to the Select Committee. When this question was asked to Yvette Stanley, head of Ofsted, by Flick Drummond, who's MP for Meon Valley, she asks Yvette this question.
Just a quick one to Yvette, actually. Were you aware that people use handcuffs to transport children between different care settings or educational settings? And do you think that the use of handcuffs outside the criminal justice system is ever appropriate?
So I am aware. When I took up the national role, I became aware because we regulate the secure estate. It is a gap in regulation. I know in our submission we've produced a long list of gaps in regulation that we would like filled, proportionately and carefully, etc. The Welsh Government have abolished the use outside the criminal judgment, and so I absolutely understand that policy position, which will be a matter for the policy makers. I think in practice, and Michelle may and Annie may want to comment, there are better ways to support children in managing moves and helping them self-regulate. And a lot of places have done some really good work on safe handling, safe support for children in crisis. So I personally would not be advocating for it outside the criminal justice system, but Ofsted sits outside the policy decision making.
Okay.
I personally would advocate for hand-holding, not handcuffing. And in this article in The Independent, you can see that the horrendous practice of handcuffing children in care must be banned, MPs warned. And in the next slide, it also says that children are being moved between care homes and court appointments with handcuffs on, and as young as 13. And just to tie up this segment, I just want to remind everybody that children in care, the councils can arrange these children to be jabbed, to be vaccinated, despite parent opposition, the High Court rules. So my question is, how many children in care have been jabbed against their will, against the consent of their parents, who didn't even know where they were?
Yeah, Debbie, thank you very much. Lots and lots of questions to be asked there about what's happening with children. But for somebody to be saying, well, of course, we lost a few, we don't know where they are, but it's not a problem, really. This tells us how disgusting UK is at the moment, not the people in principle living here, but the people who are governing the country. There's a lot we need to be bringing to the surface as quickly as possible. Ben, we're getting towards the end of the news today.